Hello again. Thank you for joining the Imperfect Gardener. Today I am going to move these dwarf confetti tomato plants out of this I do into 5-gallon buckets, each of them with air pump on each plant. There's 5 plants here. I only have room for 4. I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do with the 5th plant. These have been in the I do. I planted these, started these in the I do probably at the end of December, beginning of January. Today is January 28th, I believe. And this is how big they've gotten. And even within the last week, these have grown like exponentially. I literally had the light like down at the original level down here and have had to lift it throughout the week to the highest point. So I think it's like 24 inches. This is about as far as this can go, this I do. So yeah, I definitely have to plant these in the 5-gallon buckets and get them more nutrients. I think that's the spacing or lack of nutrients in this setup is impacting the leaves. If you look at the leaves, they're kind of dry at the bottom and brittle. And I've had some limp leaves at the top. I'm hoping by keeping them in here as long as I have, that I have not done too much damage. The root system looks relatively well. If I lift this up, I don't know if you can see, the roots are not bad. They're good coloring. So I'm gonna move them into their own buckets and hopefully we'll continue to see growth. If you look at this plant here, you see these air roots, which are like these kind of fuzzy roots, and then down here are the water roots, right? They're not as fuzzy and they're longer, and they are what feeds the plant the nutrients. And this is kind of like a hybrid cracking method, even though this unit also has an air pump, which you see bubbling in the background. But I didn't refill it because I didn't want to overfill the air roots. But anyways, it's getting ready to be moved out of this unit into their own pot, so that's going to be a non-factor. And I'm hoping that the brittle leaves and everything don't continue, and hope to can see ongoing growth. So next I'll show you how I set up the 5-gallon buckets and put the plants in there. Yeah, so what I'm getting ready to do is I'm going to take this the 5th plant I was talking about earlier. I have 4 plants set up already in hydroponics to grow in 5-gallon buckets. So I'm going to take this last plant out of the I do. If you want to look at it right here, I got the other 4 out, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. But I'm going to take this last one out, and I'm going to put it in a net pot here. So I need to gently take off this smaller net pot that comes with the I do. As you can see in here, some of the roots from the other ones came off, but that's okay. I've had that happen before. A lot of the other ones had bigger roots than this one does. This was the smaller of the 5, so it has less of a root system right now. So I'm gonna just gingerly pull this off the best I can without destroying too many roots. And then I'm going to take this bigger net pot that I cut a hole out the bottom of. I think this is a 3-inch net pot that's gonna go into the bucket, the 5-gallon bucket. You can move the camera around to kind of capture too. So I cut the hole out the bottom so that in times like these, when I have these bigger plants, I can do my best to stick the roots through the holes at the bottom. And that way I'm not trying to navigate them throughout the net pot. For me, it's just easier to set up that way so that they can go through the there. And then I add this hydroton pebbles around it and on top of it as best I can to block out the light. And I just hold the plant in place, kind of shake the hydroton around. Shaking it around to kind of get it all over the place, just to stabilize it. Like I said, it's not as pretty as a lot of other people's setup. It works for me. This is gonna be the first time I've done this indoors though. the tomatoes. I've attempted to a few months ago. I think this might be a better setup. These confetti tomatoes, they're dwarf. They're not as big as the ones I was trying before. So this is set up. I'm just gonna place this gingerly in here, and then we'll follow up in the kitchen. Some of the hydron fell out, but we'll just pick it up. Just try to be as gentle as we can. This is just water at the bottom of this, just to keep the roots damp while I transfer it from this place to the other. So yeah, I'm gonna show you what the transfer is gonna look like. We're gonna start off with the water and the nutrient mix, and then we're gonna look at the bucket and how it's set up. I'm gonna pour the rest of the water in there, and then we'll place this in last of all. See you in a minute. Yeah, so here's the 2-gallon canister that I use. I took the little thing off of here, but the spray kind of thing, I'll have it saved somewhere. I use it, but not for doing the nutrients, because I don't want to filter out anything. So when I fill this up with water, just water, tap water, I add, so this comes with, it's kind of gunky, I'll show it to you, a scooper that has a small side and a bigger side. So I do one big scoop of the Maxi Grow, and I do the smaller scoop of the Maxi Bloom for flowering at this stage, because these are going to be growing and flowering. And I know I've watched a lot of videos online on YouTube where people have compared different nutrients, and one of the takeaways that I saw from a few videos, and I wish I could call names of these people that I learned this from, but the Maxi Grow by itself works great for tomatoes. I watched one study, and I may look it up, where they saw if they did the Maxi Bloom or just the Maxi Grow alone, if what would work better. And the indetermination was like the Maxi Grow worked almost better with blooming plants like tomatoes than the Maxi Bloom. So that's why I use more of the Maxi Grow and less of the Maxi Bloom, but who knows, I might change that during the whole process. So once I fill this up, I use like a little whisker that you use for whisking, and I make sure to break up all the nutrients in there by stirring it up pretty well. And as you can see, I have my tomato plant over here ready to go once we get the rest of these nutrients poured in the 5-gallon bucket that it's going in. So here I am, I'm gonna continue pouring the rest of these nutrients into this 5-gallon bucket. This is the lid where the net pot's gonna go for the tomatoes, the last tomato plant. I've put the other 4 in earlier this morning. I'm not gonna fill this up to the top. I'm gonna fill it to a point to where I think it's gonna reach the roots. Like on this one, yeah. Leave about 3 or 4 inches from the top of the bucket, and I think that's pretty well filled. In here you'll see I have an air pump. I bought this on Amazon, and these are the air pumps that I'm using. They're 4 inches, pretty big, one in each of these pots. I'll put the link to what I'm using below in the description. This goes in here. All 4 of these have that. I'm using this air pump on this because I had to find an extra one. I bought the air pump itself from PetSmart. It was like under $10, or Walmart, one or the other. And this bigger one from Amazon, it has 4 lines for each of these pots that I'm using. So that's how it's set up. Here we're gonna put the lid on this pot here. This bucket, I keep calling a pot. And the last step is we're going to add the plant. So I'm going to grab the plant and put it in. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see, the roots are touching the water, but the cool thing is the air pump will provide enough air to the plants to where the air roots will be fine in this setup. So if you want to pull back, and we'll see the whole setup for all the tomatoes here. So we now have 5 tomatoes ready to be grown in this area under light. We'll see how well it goes. I'll be doing check-ins here and there. Again, these tomatoes are the confetti dwarf tomatoes. I started those end of December, beginning of January. I'm not quite sure as to the exact date because I lost that documentation. But today is, I believe, the 28th of January, and they're pretty big. I mean, at this point, so hopefully we see continued growth and eventual fruiting. Show you how you self-pollinate later on if they get that far. Again, I'm just experimenting with indoor gardening here in the Puget Sound. We've had a lot of cold weather, so this would definitely not make it outside without heat and artificial lighting. Our last frost is not until March 21st, so I'm trying to do the best I can until we can start planting outside. And so again, this is my experiment. Let's see where it goes. Thank you for joining. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Have a good day.